morning. So my workout setup looks a little bit different these days. I started to wear my weighted vest again, and now I'll be adding in some ankle weights in the mix. I've gone from 1 yoga block to 2 this month, and I'm going to be doing some arm exercises with these dumbbells and my kettlebell swings, and I use a little tiny weight like this. It's a 5-pound weight for my hip flexor exercises that I learned from my chiropractor a while ago. So I'm also going to add some extra resistance with this band here. That is how I will be getting my body super warm today so that I can do some serious splits training. And I've also incorporated this foam roller where I'll be doing my splits and rolling over on that. So a lot of changes, and I'm feeling it in my body in terms of resisting some of these exercises. As long as I keep my consistency, motivation. I also think that starting this YouTube channel, it has helped me to stay accountable to my goals. And doing a little body check-in this morning, I looked the exact same as I did, about a month ago. And what could change if I ate more greens and vegetables and protein is body fat percentage reduction. But I also need to start going on the Stairmaster again. So I still have the glute definition. Yeah, still there. So I can still see myself doing a bikini fitness competition, if I wanted to in the new year. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm getting ready for the day by doing my workout and my flexibility training, and I'll be editing some videos because there's a lot that I haven't posted about just yet, those online. So ballet, dance, the arts, fitness and beauty pageants, and really just everything that I enjoy doing. So if you like this video, please click subscribe and like and or comment, and I'd love to hear from you. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how I gained 9 pounds and lost 10 pounds. And New Year's is coming up, and how many more years do you want to have the same goals on that New Year's resolution list? I can say that there have been a few years where I've had the same goals on the list year after year, and I actually found how to completely turn that upside down this year in 2025, and I'm going to share how I gained 9 pounds and then how I lost it all. So first, nothing was under control, and I was stress eating. I would go through drive-thrus. I was doing late night eating, takeouts, not eating, binge eating, and I had no cookware, no microwave, and an empty apartment. So over the past year or so, I've been transitioning into completely new routine, new city, new everything, and I didn't have furniture in my apartment because it was totally new, and I made a very quick move. And in terms of the downside that came with that was that I didn't plan anything because I couldn't plan at the time. And what ended up happening was I had no microwave in my apartment because all of my belongings were still up where I was previously living. And I haven't had a microwave in years, mostly because I was barely home, traveling during the pandemic for work as a disaster responder. And so I just didn't have a microwave. So, I'd come home from time to time and, things would break down, or I think what happened to my microwave, if I'm recollecting this correctly, I may have put something in the microwave and the fuse blew. So I didn't have a microwave anymore, and I didn't bother to go out and get a new one. So I didn't have a microwave, and I was totally okay with not having one. So fast forward again to my new move, and I just didn't have a microwave, and I would always heat up my meals, in the oven or back on the stove, and or just eat a salad. So I was always eating salads or food that didn't need a lot of warming up. And I found that because so many things were happening at the time in life that I had nothing under control, and I think my eating just went along with it as well. So in terms of, my dinners, I would end up, going through a Wendy's drive-through or eating McDonald's or picking up something after work. And I did a lot of takeout during that time. And I had some other things happen where, dealing with illness in my family and or, accidents and, hospital visits. I ended up doing a lot of stress eating. And I didn't realize it at the time that not only was I doing a lot of takeout because I didn't have time and or I wasn't planning any of my meals, but I was also stress eating because it kind of became like comfort food. And I would go through moments and days where I'm just binge eating, whatever, I had in the pantry, that was, freeze dried, or, had lots of sugar or a high fat percentage or salty. And I did a lot of binge eating. And I also fluctuated to not eating at all. So sometimes I would just do like, a little salad or, grab some snacks for my lunch and dinner, or, I wasn't really taking care of myself. And that was one of the first things that got me into this whole weight gain. So that was the first one. Number 2, I stopped using the scale and I totally lost track of where I was. And in terms of weight loss and getting hold of, your fitness goals, using a scale, I wouldn't say is the most important. However, not using the scale for months and months can end up being detrimental, especially if you're doing a lot of stress eating and not planning your meals. So in terms of the scale and my relationship with the scale, I found that I just didn't care. I didn't care to step on the scale, and I just found myself just not caring at all. So I lost track of myself, and I think I lost control step by step, and that was one of the main points in terms of how I gained all of that weight in such a short period of time. So this was over a period of perhaps maybe 4 months. So not too horrible in terms of weight gain. It wasn't rapid, and it wasn't something that was shocking. I would say that it was shocking at the end of that time period when I realized I've totally let myself go. So the third thing that really took me off track was no routine. Other than ballet, I was going to ballet, but I wouldn't consider that exercise, especially not for me who has always had a healthy, active lifestyle. And I neglected my weights at home, and I wasn't going to the gym, and I would have random days where I would go to Pilates, my reformer Pilates, and I wasn't waking up at a decent time enough to work out or go to the gym or even go on a run. I just had no motivation. So what ended up happening was I did some research on a few gyms and I decided to sign up for one. And what got me in there in the first place was all of their fitness classes. And this is something that I would highly recommend. If you're having a hard time getting motivated to go to the gym, I would go for a fitness class. That way you're in there with a few other people and you're all working towards the same thing. You know, there's no pressure. You don't have to figure out how to use any machines in there because the teacher will always, be the guide in terms of, what you should be doing. So a fitness class is a great way to either reintegrate yourself to the gym or introduce yourself to the gym. So the first thing was I got a gym membership and I started to reconvene in terms of a strategy in how I went about my exercises. So for example, Pilates, I found out that, or I started to learn for myself that for me, it's more of a injury and recovery kind of care exercising routine. And I didn't want to rely on that. And I'm sure there are people out there who might lose weight with Pilates, but in terms of my dance goals and, my physique as a, pre-professional, budding professional, it's important for me to have an athletic physique in terms of my performance and my aesthetic. So those are really important for me. But anyways, during that time, I wasn't taking care of myself. So I was just tinkering. I was tinkering along with my exercises. And, I was just doing the same thing over and over again. And then something changed. So a few months into all of this, I decided, wait a minute. I don't have a routine. I'm waking up right before I have to go to work. And what started to happen was I started to sleep a little bit more. However, I would wake up a little bit earlier. So I found that I started to have more time. I started to have more energy. And I lost all of that weight that I gained, about 9 to 10 pounds. So first I realized that I gained all of that weight. And that was actually mostly through my first, they have like a introductory kind of session with a personal trainer at the gym that I signed up with, and I did gain quite a bit of weight, or at least I could see that I did in terms of my body fat percentage slowly rising. But it wasn't until a few months after that of barely going to the gym, eating whatever, was close by and barely moving. And I realized that I gained quite a bit of weight. One day I pulled out the scale and I realized, oh my gosh, that's a bit too much for my liking. So second, I reestablished some of my routines. Slowly, I started to wake up earlier and earlier, and instead of just rolling out of bed and slopping around in my apartment and getting ready for work, I started waking up earlier and earlier. I started to set some appointments and some of my language lessons with my tutors early in the morning, so that helped as well. So I would get up around 7, and then it turned into 6 a.m. and now it's 5:30, and I'm trying to tweak it a little bit so that I can stay a little bit more consistent and be up around 5 a.m. so I can fit more things in the morning. So next, I started to meal prep again, and it wasn't just a matter of meal prepping, things that I thought would taste great, but more so, what are some of the healthier alternatives? For example, swapping out, sour creams for my Greek yogurt, and I really started to take more account of what I was eating. So third, I took a ritualistic approach to the gym, in that I saw it more of like a sacred time with myself, and I indulged in the saunas and some of the classes and the pools. I even took a few pool fitness classes with my little sister. And fourth, I moved desks in the office where I work, and I used to have a desk where I had a large drawer, and then I would put tons of snacks in there, including Nutella, and that was my guilty pleasure. I would stick a spoon into this tub of Nutella, and I would just eat Nutella spoonfuls every day. So we can't do that anymore because I'm moving around in the building throughout the day, so I don't have really time to do those kinds of snackings. Fifth, I've added more protein in my diet, and that includes things like Greek yogurt again, but also putting protein powder in some of my baked goods. So for example, sometimes I like to make muffins or cake loaves, and I've been subbing in some protein powder with some of the flour. And then the other aspect to that is I started to bake more things and eat more things that I enjoy. So instead of just cooking for, survival, or, just because it's gourmet, I've been finding that solid in between where I can find some foods that I really like to eat, and even sharing that experience with others. And that includes my parents, and they've been getting involved in helping me to make some Caribbean Scottish meals that I enjoy. So I actually made a Jamaican Scottish cookbook for Mother's Day, and I've been doing a lot of more thoughtful gifts, and that is one of them. Okay, so next, running for stress relief, and I did this religiously as a teenager, and then it kind of started to fall off after university. And I think it also could have been because I also lived in the city for a little bit in Toronto, and I just wasn't excited to run in the city. So anywho, so I included running again in my routines in the mornings, and that has been quite amazing. So lastly, I rekindled a fire, and this came from my newfound passion for bikini fitness and those kinds of competitions. And I never was able to really focus on that because of my beauty pageants, but I started to do some more research, and that's definitely a route that I'm going to take in the future. And the other part to that is knowing that I need to have a ballerina body, and that includes a lower fat percentage, more toned in my muscles, and I need to be able to perform and create some amazing works of art, as well as seeing my body as a work of art too. And being able to work on that is really important for me. And I value my health, and I value being able to be a part of the arts world. So that is a little bit of my story on how I gained 9 pounds and lost 10 all within a year. And I have some new heights on the horizon, and what was my ceiling previously is now my floor. So I'm ready to keep going, and I have about 40 something days left in the year, and I'm going to do everything that I need to do to have an awesome end of the year. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, click subscribe, and we'll see you soon.